Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America. Joining us from Bellbrook, Ohio. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Chuck Henson, and this is Joining Us, 50 years of Bands of America. I can't believe, as Dr. Jim said in episode 1, 50 years? Are you kidding me? Those were his exact words. There have been so many people, literally hundreds of thousands of people have gone through the ranks at Marching Bands of America, and Music for All. And some of them go on to do great things, like this next guy. I'm a little bit, it's like celebrity interview time. Glenn Kotche is here with us today. Glenn is the drummer for Wilco. He's been with that band since 2001, but he's done a ton of solo work. And Glenn, you do a lot of world percussion sort of stuff as well on your own, right?
Yeah, I work with other groups, different disparate collaborations, studio drummer. Yeah, but Wilco's been my main gig the last 25 years.
Did you know, had you always had I want to make sure I say this the right way, because some people go, yeah, I picked up my drum and I knew instantly this was my life. Is that something that would hold true for you? Or did you kind of find yourself on that path by a different means?
No, that's absolutely true. I began identifying as a drummer at age 3. And that's another story. I have to say, let me get this out of the way right off the bat. Listening to these podcasts and seeing who your guests are, I'm honored to be included, first of all, but it's just a phenomenal array of like the titans of the activity of music education, of people who are crucial in developing and evolving the activity, but also people who are just music education legends, as well as, the people from Bands of America who made this all happen the last 50 years. And talk about imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh. Let's get that out of the way right now. I was just like, why are they? I almost said no because I was like, I don't deserve to be in that company because, I've been away from the activity for so long. But then I thought like, well, maybe they want the perspective of the kid who was on the field and who heard you say joining us at Grand Nationals 4 times. And
Where did you grow up? You grew up in Chicago?
I grew up in Roselle, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago.
Sure. Right next to Schaumburg.
Yeah, lots of little suburbs around there. But I basically won the lottery, I like to say, when it came to music educators in my life, beginning with my father, who was a part-time, he's a public works guy, but he also taught somehow 50 to 80 private students on piano and organ every week. And as a Chicagoan, you'd appreciate this too. He also, his side gig, he would back up Cookie the Clown and Wizzo from the Bozo Circus for their private parties sometimes too. But anyway, so he and my mom...
that was his side gig?
Yeah. After teaching and his public works job. But he still loves music, 95, still in that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they were major supporters, and also because I'm the youngest of 6, and I think they didn't have the energy to worry too much at that point.
Is everybody a musician? All 6 of you?
None. I mean, everyone played, but I'm the only musician, yeah.
Okay.
But I got so lucky because my feeder school, my junior high was Roselle Middle School, and the band director there, Bob Wiss, was an incredible teacher, performer, person. I'm still in touch with him regularly.
Really?
And he Gosh, there's a lot of Bob Wiss stories, but, he's a former Cavalier. He marched their first championship. He marched 8 years with the Cavaliers. His one son marched with the Cadets, and I ended up working for his son, Brian Wiss, at Naperville North High Schools when they were winning Super State.
I know that name well, sure.
And his other son, Rob Wiss, was a drum major at Cavaliers. So he was incredibly, just such a motivator and just a great teacher and such a supporter. Our little parade bands back in 5th, 6th, 7th grade would beat Lake Park at the Roselle Rose Parade because Bob would put on these elaborate, little sideshows at the reviewing stand and stuff. So, he just really supported. And he was the guy who saw something in me and requested from the high school band director when I was in 7th grade that I start taking private lessons from the band director who was a percussionist. And so when I was in 7th grade, I started taking private lessons with Ken Snook.
I was just going to ask you, it had to have been Ken.
Yeah.
Now, let me back up a little bit because you guys had a parade band in junior high and middle school?
Yeah. So, at the end of the year after the last concert, he would pull out the old, tri-toms and the big old harnesses, and we'd get like 3 snares, a couple bass drums, and I still have one of those marching bass drums.
I can't imagine. So you started in 5th grade?
4th grade private lessons because there was some referendum. The band program got pushed back a year for budget reasons. So 5th grade officially.
I can't imagine. I was a clarinet player, started in 5th grade. I can't imagine 6th, 7th, 8th grade, me parading anything. I don't know that I would have been all arms and elbows at that point, and no way could I have coordinated that to happen. Were those kind of bands prevalent in Chicago at that time? The younger kids? It would have been like a cadet corps, right? Sort of thing.
Well, it was just for maybe the last month of school.
Okay.
And he'd put that together. And, Bob Wiss was amazing at putting that together and coming up with a little show for the review stand. And he brought in, former alums. That's where I was introduced to a guy, Dean Gronemeyer, who was a Roselle Middle and Lake Park grad. And he went on to be the professor at UNLV, professor of percussion. So that was my first introduction to the activity and hearing those stories.
You hit the lottery.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then being a freshman at Lake Park in 1985, their first trip to Bands of America Nationals.
Wow. So my first year announcing would have been right after that, 87, the first day. And I don't think Lake Park would have been on the first day. They would have been a day 2 band in Pontiac. So that would have been, so you graduated 89, 90, somewhere around there?
89. So 4 trips to finals. I think we were 7th, 4th, and 2nd.
That is saying something, man. That is saying something.
And so those were incredible, experiences.
Oh, heck yeah. So who was the rest of the staff then at Lake Park? I'm sure Pam was involved, right?
Pam was always in charge. Yes, of course. Some different visual people. At first Ken was doing a lot of it himself, but he brought in, luckily, my sophomore year, Mike Scioto, who is a Madison Scouts alum, Memphis Blues alum.
And was with that program forever.
Yes. And he actually, took over when Ken retired. He was the band director at Lake Park. Mm-hmm. So he was the drumline instructor and private teacher. And then also Kevin Lepper was frontline ensemble. So he taught Cavaliers. And that's how I can say Dr. Tim is I'm his grand student because Kevin studied with Dr. Tim, in college. And so, I have that lineage. And those were my teachers, and they were in charge of the percussion section. And then luckily, because of our proximity, we would get some Cavalier staff in to help us out. And there were a lot of other regulars. And, that was pretty amazing. I still have right there on the wall of my studio here at home 2 Marching Bands of America and 2 Bands of America medals from finals.
Do you really?
Just to remind me,
As a student, how did Ken approach those rehearsals leading up into Grand Nationals? What was his style? Was he all fire and brimstone? Was he just, hey, let's do the best we can? How were you guys mentally walking into those shows?
Well, his entire program at Lake Park was built on, that's where I learned so many qualities that have been, crucial to my career and just my life as well.
Yeah.
Positive values, having responsibility, having ownership of what you do, the leadership skills, obviously, inclusion, having pride in what you do. Just all of that, the discipline, it was, really important. And Ken was, he was definitely a taskmaster. Like I showed up late once and that never happened again because, showing up on time was late. And he expected the absolute most out of every individual on that field. But it didn't matter. We had kids in, our second place finals band who didn't play an instrument before that season, who were, playing some percussion or picking up flags, and everyone was included. No one was turned away. And it was never once about winning.
No.
It was always about doing the best we possibly could as a group. It was about teamwork. It was about those positive values that I know had a huge impact on everyone who came through his programs. And it wasn't always easy because he expected a lot.
yeah.
You know, some of our best instrumentalists, you know, quit or let go of because they didn't want to be quiet when Ken was talking, or they didn't want to run back to their spot, or they didn't want to show up on time. They weren't sending a good message to the younger kids, so it didn't matter. It was about the team.
Right. And in their minds, it's about them, and those are the people that are never going to be successful, honestly. Do you find that those values that you took from that they served you well professionally once you reached that level?
Oh, crucial. Yeah, absolutely. Just the teamwork aspect, you know, leaving someplace better than you found it. Learning how to prepare, learning how to have extremely high expectations for yourself, but also learning how to learn the lessons in defeat or in disappointment and handling that with grace and dignity. You know, I was in all of those bands playing to Marian Catholic every time they won, you know, at nationals out of respect to them because that was, you know, that was another gift too. I heard the episode with Greg Bim and that was...
Wasn't it great?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He was such a positive influence on our band, you know, and he said having Lake Park was great for his program. Well, having Marian, you know, that really pushed us, and, you know, Prospect and Lincoln Way, all those amazing bands in that area. But having them as a perennial, I even hate to use the word competitor, but...
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody should have that program. Everybody should have the program that drives them down the road further. In my case, it would have been in Kentucky, George Rogers Clark in Lafayette High School.
Mm-hmm.
If you have that, you feel it and you feed off of each other. And it was very clear that Lake Park and Marian were those two programs, even though right around you were some other really, really great bands in your area.
Yeah.
We had Lincoln Way and all those that are, you know, just monsters out there.
No, they'd give us a run at state. I mean, I don't even know how many times you won state, 20 years in a row or something, but it was always gave us a run for our money. All those bands did. And also, this is a story I remember because we used to have, it wasn't a wealthy district. We would have to fundraise and go out there and hit the pavement and ask for donations. And we had a home contest every year. And just what a testament it was to Ken and the impact I think he had on the entire community, he and Pam, because at our home contest, when I was later teaching Lake Park in the mid-90s, actually in 96, I taught part of that season as well when they won. But we were the only successful thing at Lake Park. Truly successful, the only state champions for the most part. There were some other little things, I think girls bowling, something like that. But when I was teaching, I remember the football coach, Andy Livingston, who was my German teacher, he brought the football team to the joust and had them watch the contest and support the band because the band supports the football team at theirs. And that was just, to me, just an example of the respect that the band program had, that Ken had, and that those values, other teachers could see it in the kids in their classes. And I think it was just the ripple effect that it had not only on us as students and the parents, but the community as well. And that's just something that, I think is unique to the band world. I really do.
The joust, for people who don't understand, the Lake Park Lancers is their mascot and the joust is their annual marching band competition. They call it the joust.
Yes.
Is Cam Stacey still announcing the joust? I bet she is. She's done it forever.
I don't know. I haven't been in forever, but yeah, Cam's one of those true bright lights.
Yeah. I wonder how many years it's got to still be going on, right?
I honestly don't know.
Just out of curiosity for myself, as someone who works professionally as a percussionist, when you meet other, and I will say drummers for rock bands, sort of drummers, do they share similar backgrounds? It's so funny because when I think of a rock band or any band and the percussionist, I don't think of them coming through the ranks of marching band. But you have that.
Yeah, sometimes I can usually tell within seconds if they have.
Or do we have a special nerd quality about us?
No. More by their playing, honestly.
Oh, really?
And more so, I'd guess, I gravitate and have several friends who maybe came through percussion programs in college like I did, at our mutual alma mater, Kentucky. But marching program, I guess there's definitely ones out there, but I guess I don't know a lot firsthand that came through drum and bugle corps and everything.
Well, so many of them are like garage trained, I think is what I would probably best way to describe it.
Right.
They can't know much. I mean, they can keep a beat and do the traditional things that people expect to see out of drummers. But as a percussionist, it's a very different world for you. You're creating sound, you're creating music, you're creating vibes and feeling. And when you do that, it's a whole different animal than just keeping a beat for a guitar and a bass player.
It is, but I mean, everyone has their own way of expression. You can't forget that Buddy Rich was self-taught.
Right.
So, there are wonderful players who come from every type of background, but the lessons I learned, particularly the ensemble playing, and then if you talk about, my year after graduation from Lake Park that summer, I marched snare line with Cavaliers in 1989. And then that fall, I started at University of Kentucky under Jim Campbell.
You were a Jim Campbell guy. Yeah, Jim, one of my favorite people. He was awesome.
Yeah, Jim's amazing. I've texted with him this morning. I'm still in touch with all these guys because they were so impactful for me. But the lessons learned on the field have really come in handy for me in several instances, besides the musicality and learning how to phrase and learning that you're not always in the front. It's not about you. Sometimes you have to retreat and you're in a background supportive role. Sometimes you are the feature. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's about playing color and texture and not about keeping rhythm. All those are crucial elements, but especially in the marching, I remember times double drumming. I've been really fortunate to have double drummed several times with Phil Selway, the drummer from Radiohead, or Levon Helm.
What is that? Tell me that. What is double drumming?
When two drummers on the same stage.
Oh, okay.
Playing with a band, yeah.
Okay.
Or Levon Helm from the band, or Maureen Tucker from Velvet Underground. And that's when those lessons really came in, because those little looking at them glances, those little microsecond adjustments, when you're trying to clean up a roll, mid-roll on the snare line, being able to adjust with the beat and feel and kind of those listening skills, those were crucial in those. And then also, the time it really hit me like a ton of bricks was when I was doing this faucet commercial for Delta Faucets. I did the music for it. I was playing basically a piece from these touch faucets that were hitting different pans and glasses and everything, and it played out the melody to I'll Be There by the Four Tops, right?
Nice.
Anyway, I did the music for it, and then they realized an actor probably couldn't pull that off. So I went to the set, did the commercial, and as soon as I got up there, it was like, okay, here's all my drum and bugle corps and marching band skills coming into play, because I had to think it wasn't ergonomically set up like an instrument. So I had to think okay, I need to place my feet here, my shoulders here, I need to touch up here, dampen it like I would on timpani or on vibraphone, and then look over here and make this jump over here to get that. It was like all these skills that had been dormant came to the forefront, and it was just incredible. I was like, thank God I had that experience, because
I can see you dampening a faucet.
It's out there somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. All right, let's take a moment for a quick break, because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcasts to contribute your story.
My name is Larry Livingston, and indeed, I am delighted to comment about this wonderful organization called Music for All. Commencing in about 2007, I had the opportunity to be directly involved with the organization, and that involvement has continued in various formats to this day. In that period of time, I was primarily involved as the ongoing music director of the Music for All National Honor Orchestra, made up of outstanding high school musicians from all over the country. In the golden years, we rehearsed intensely in Indianapolis and gave sometimes 2 concerts of very difficult world-class repertoire. And the experience was memorable for me, and I think inspiring for everybody involved. The students played with tremendous intensity and purpose, and I fortunately have encountered a number of them as they've gone on to their lives as pros or in university music schools, many at USC, and they all speak with a real sense of appreciation and joy about the whole experience. And I think that not only was it great from a musical and pedagogical standpoint, but also from a social standpoint, where these students got to meet people from a different part of the country. And I encouraged all of them to spend time at lunch and in breaks, hanging out, not just with their friends, but with people who were new to them. And I especially encouraged them to look for individuals, different gender, different race, different ethnicity, in order to propagate the idea that social inclusiveness is a vehicle that's vital to the future of our country, and especially important for people who are musicians, because in the end of the day, music is a people game, and the ability to interact with and relate to a wide variety of individuals in a way that makes a consensus of interpretation and performance is a gift, which Music for All was so wonderful in providing. I also had opportunity a couple of times to go to the wonderful marching band competition held in the fall, which was stunning. Really outstanding groups from all over the country, and a riveting commitment to entertainment and high-level music making. I think Music for All serves a purpose unique in the country, is vital, and as we spend more and more time worried about how competitive our students are with respect to national tests, etc., I'm interested in spiritual welfare. And in that regard, I think the students who have participated in Music for All, the management and its care and love of the whole idea of bringing music to the world, and all the wonderful colleagues I've had during the years. So bravo to Music for All. Congratulations on your 50-year anniversary. And thank you for everything you do to promote the notion that music is for everyone.
Now, let's rejoin our conversation. So what are the experiences that Music for All and Bands of America has provided to you that you think to yourself, wow, I could never, ever have achieved that anywhere else?
Well, I mean, besides those early situations of performing in regionals and nationals and the competitive aspect of it, where the pressure's on and you do learn about, performing under intense pressure, which happens, I don't consider it pressure anymore, but all the TV shows, all the concerts, all the big shows that I play, it's not, nerves aren't really a factor because I've been in those situations where I don't want to let down 160 kids or I don't want to let down 128 kids. So I think just the nerves part of it.
But it's a different kind of nerves now, isn't it? Because I still, to this day, if I'm going to flip on a microphone, there's still a little bit of nervous, and I guess I would call it nervous energy more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's that desire to make sure that you are good at what you do and that you can deliver what is supposed to be delivered. I think if you come to a situation like that without nerves, and I think we're talking about two different things, nerves, then you're probably you open yourself up to make mistakes if you're not a little bit nervous, I think. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's an excitement more than an anxiety, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But just knowing that, okay, now's the time. You get one chance. You got to be on and go for it and do your best. And, if something goes wrong, don't let it get in your head. All those experiences from being on the field. And then years later, I was really fortunate in college, having that program with Jim Campbell. He also had a big role in the summer symposium.
Yeah, he sure did.
I think it was in Bloomington at that point.
Yes.
And I was the intern for 2 years for the drum set track.
Dude, we had to have met. We had to have met before then, undoubtedly.
Oh, yeah. No, we have. Yeah, for sure. And also with the Kentucky connection, too.
Yeah.
But that was incredible, too, because I was basically in charge of moving gear, setting up, and taking around all the clinicians. So I was exposed to these world-class, famous drummers, and I got to pick their brains and
that's it.
Get all these lessons and ask them questions and get that. And in fact, it was great. 2 weeks ago, I saw Ringo Starr here at the Chicago Theater.
Wow.
So Chicago Theater, I can't walk in that place. I played it, maybe a dozen times. I have no idea. But I always think, my dad tells stories when he was a kid. His father, when he got off work, he was a mover, would take him on the L train. They'd go to the Chicago Theater, set up outside. And when Red Skeleton and the comedians were inside performing, they would come out at their intermission and try and sell war bonds during World War II.
Really?
And my dad would play accordion, backing him up, trying to, drum up interest in this. And so every time I'm there, I think about that. Okay. Anyway, back to the story.
Wow. No, that's an incredible story.
I saw Ringo Starr 2 weeks ago at the Chicago Theater, and Greg Bissonette was his drummer. And I remember taking Greg around, and I reminded him of that at that show. I got to say hello to him and reminded him. He was like, and Cam and Deb. And I was like, yeah,
really?
All of those people. And, he remembered it because his parents came, and just the exposure to those guys too. And John Bergamo, and seeing Casey Sherrill, Steve Houghton was there, just world-class players, Ralph Humphreys. So it was like, Bands of America and Music for All, huge impact on me.
So Glenn, when you get an opportunity, my brain just went into a whole different place when you mentioned Greg Bissonette's name. You think of these guys that have professional careers and they agree to come help out with an MFA event, with the summer camp or with the concert festival or something like that. And I've always thought of, well, they're just stepping out of their world for a minute and this doesn't really mean anything to them, but it's nice. But it does mean something to them, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think Maybe not all of them. I've done clinics before and some have an impact, some don't, but it's more walking into that environment. Music for All, Bands of America.
What makes it different?
The positivity, the attitude of the staff that's there, which sets the tone through the entire event. The quality of the kids that are there because they're really into learning. They're really into trying their best. It's just the entire umbrella of the vibe of the events that they put on. It's for the right reasons. It's sending the right messages, teaching the right lessons. And I think that's palpable to anyone who comes into that environment, even if they're not familiar with it.
It's funny. I never think of it from that perspective because as someone who's been on staff and worked all the events and been part of the team, our approach is always that white glove approach, to make sure that the people that we're bringing in are having the best possible experience. But I never thought about it from their perspective that they might be trying to do the same thing to make sure when they come in that they're providing the very best experience because they feel that vibe coming out of us.
Oh, yeah. I think it raises everyone up.
Yep. All ships rise when the tide comes in.
Yep.
I saw in your notes you've worked with Taylor Swift, you worked with some other folks. What are those experiences like? I'm just going to be a fanboy now for a little bit.
Well, I played on a Taylor Swift record, Ed Sheeran record. I didn't work with them directly. I worked with their producers, but I have worked with several of my heroes. Like I said, some of the guys from Radiohead or Neil Finn from Crowded House or, Beck and Katie Lang and Nico Case and Iron and Wine. Anyway, a lot of people that I really, really respect. And it's always a bit of, it's just like shock. Like,
exactly.
You get the imposter syndrome. Like, do I deserve to be here?
But then 16-year-old Lake Park High School drummer inside you go, holy cow, guess what I'm doing right now?
It's a little bit at first like, oh my gosh, do I deserve to be here? But then instantly that 16-year-old hears, Ken and Pam Snook or Bob Wiss saying, believe in yourself. We believe in you. You can do this. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or my parents or my siblings, it's like that trust in yourself and that you have a mission and you're prepared. Just do it and don't worry about it.
Because it's not easy. It's not easy to become a professional musician. A lot of people go into school. You went to college as a performance major, I'm assuming, right?
Yep.
So I see a lot of people that do that. And of course, they come out of school and then they never end up doing what they want to do. What is it that made it different for you that you were able to go into that environment, get the piece of paper you needed to get, and then continue on with a professional career?
Well, obviously, luck's a part of it. I remember my advisor in college, Vince DiMartino, told me like everyone gets...
Oh my God, you're rattling off all these names from...
Yeah, he told me like, hey, everyone gets their shot. You just got to be ready when it comes. And I remembered that. But honestly, the thing is, because there's hundreds of amazing blazing drum set players who move to all the big cities after graduation every year.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the best, even at Kentucky, let alone in Chicago at that time. The thing that set me apart is I quickly realized, because about midway through college, getting my performance degree, I realized I wanted to focus more on drum set. And I realized too, after I graduated, that all this experience I had from marching percussion, from timpani, from playing mallets and world percussion and all that, if I just incorporate that into my drum set playing, which is exactly what, Jim Campbell and Kevin Lepper started to do in the frontline ensembles.
Yeah.
Instead of just having your marimba player and your timpani player and your auxiliary player, they started developing these elaborate rack systems where, someone on the frontline ensemble became a multi-percussionist.
Yep.
And he started incorporating techniques, Irish bodhran playing on the bass drums and incorporating all these different techniques from across the breadth of percussion into that activity. And I just took that lesson and it's like, well, that's what I'm going to do. So, basically my approach became that I'm not only going to use the instruments from all these different disparate areas of percussion that I studied, but the concepts, the techniques, all of those, and put it into my drum set playing. And as soon as I started doing that, I started just getting work and more work.
Yeah.
And then I got lucky enough to work with a wonderful producer and musician in town here, Jim O'Rourke, and he introduced me to Jeff Tweedy from Wilco, and we started a band. And then I was asked, to join. I came in to play vibraphone and percussion and sounds on the Wilco record Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, and was asked to join the band as the drummer. And then, from there, one thing leads to another. And then I made a solo percussion record, and David Harrington from Kronos Quartet heard it and asked me if I'd write a piece for them. And so then all of a sudden, all these classical groups started asking me to write pieces, and I became a composer by accident.
Because you were versed in all of that. You're not just, a snare drummer. You're a percussionist, and that's what makes the difference.
Yes, and that's something I learned, in those formative years from those instructors from the activity, all those people I named.
Who would have been, if you can think off the top of your head, that first door that opened that you were smart enough to walk through? I use that phrase all the time. Doors open when they're supposed to. We just have to be smart enough to walk through them. For me, in Chicago. I literally sent a cassette tape to WBBM, a cassette tape, when I think about it, with a letter that said, I don't have any experience. I want to do this. I'll sweep floors. Please just give me an opportunity. I know I can do it. And he literally gave me a shot.
Amazing.
My first gig was airborne traffic reporter in Chicago with
Yep.
no experience. No experience. What kind of fool does that? That wouldn't happen today.
No, you've got the voice for it, though. I wouldn't call it a foolish choice at all.
But that door wouldn't have opened. You know what I mean? Like somebody
Yeah.
opened that door for me. And it was Chris Berry at WBBM was that guy for me.
Wow.
Who was that person for you who kind of, once that door was open and you walked through it, nothing was the same after that?
Well, I guess initially it was Jim O'Rourke because I was playing just a small club show, and I was playing a metal sculpture that I had designed with an art student at Kentucky.
I love that.
So I went and like held these pieces and I made it so that it could scrape and hit it and everything. And he thought that was so bizarre. And he saw, I think, that I could play quietly too, because I was backing up a lot of singer-songwriters.
What, a drummer that could be quiet? What?
Exactly, which you gotta do sometimes. And I think it was him then calling me a few months later, asking me to record on his record, and Jeff from Wilco being a huge fan of his, and then him bringing me into the fold with that.
Yeah.
And then Jeff seeing like, hey, this is the right fit for my band. And then being able to play and have that wider exposure, and then other people seeing it from there.
Do you still have that sculpture?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's still there.
Really?
Yeah. I still have it at the Wilco
Nice.
recording studio. And one more aside.
Yeah.
When you mentioned cassette tapes, it just hit me. So another thing that I think those positive values, I bought a set of 4 cassette tapes from Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser when I was in high school. And I listened to that, and it was, I think the presentation he does to band kids and stuff, but it was so incredibly motivational for me. The messages that he conveyed in those cassettes about just being yourself, having the confidence, about individuality, that is something that has definitely impacted me.
Wow.
Because when, I play percussion fests or whatever, I'm typically the oddball because I'm the one doing all the weird percussion and found percussion and all this stuff that's maybe out of the norm of typical, canon of drum set playing. And I never look back. I never second guess myself because I know that those lessons that he talks about and those examples, they've stuck with me all that time. And I know, just don't second guess it. Just be yourself and shoot from the hip and go where it feels right. And you're going to be happy. A happier person. If that's the case, it's going to be genuine.
Yeah.
It's not forced. It's not a put on, and you're doing it for the right reason because something in you is telling you to do it and you believe in it.
Amen.
And again, another, Music for All Bands of America, like influence.
The connections are amazing that you have. And, I think we all determined, well, at least I've determined in doing these podcasts, is that we find the energy that fits with us. And that's what Music for All has done. Music for All has gathered all of those people that find themselves drawn to that same level of energy that we call excellence. And how can it not be successful? How can it not change lives when you've got that much positive energy attached to it? And you've seen that firsthand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why, when people ask me like, oh, your former teachers must be so proud of you. You've got these accolades and a Grammy and gold records and stuff. It's like, honestly, I think they're proud of all of their students because they know that whether they went into music or not, that they're taking those lessons they learned with them. And that, again, the ripple effect. And that's had an impact on their children and their community and their spouses. And, in marching band, we didn't necessarily always like the kid we are marching next to. Maybe in school we didn't get along with them, but you join together for a common cause.
Yep.
And lessons like that, especially in this time in our country, are super, super important.
Yeah.
Learning how to work with people that you might have differences with in collaborative teamwork and rising above for a common goal.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, things like that. I think those lessons have just rippled out and affected,
Right.
countless more lives than anyone from Music for All or Bands of America could have ever expected.
I think you're right. I've said a million times, the man I am today is a direct result of my involvement in music and music education.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way around it. I mean, the empathy and the teamwork and the ability to care for those people around you in a way that makes them family.
Yep.
So if there's someone listening to this, a young percussionist, a young drummer coming up right now through the ranks, and, they've got designs on what you do for a living, what advice do you give them?
Basically, have big ears, first of all. So listen to a lot of stuff, and that's also something, having studied world percussion, having played jazz through the marching idiom, I was exposed to so much classical music I wouldn't have been otherwise, or in the concert band setting too. have big ears, listen to all sorts of things because you can learn something from everything. That, and, honestly, the simplest things are the ones that get you working and keep having you work. To show up on time, be prepared, make sure your equipment works, make sure you get a good sound. These are all like the basic tenets of music education, right?
Yeah. Be that person other people can count on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then just the teamwork aspect too. It doesn't matter if you're the most shredding drummer the world has ever seen. If people can't stand to be with you for 15 minutes in a van, let alone, 3 weeks or a month or a tour bus, you're not going to work. So it's kind of those simple lessons, but also to just have an open mind. And honestly, to me, creativity has been as much a part of any success I've had as any sort of technique or chops or musical ability. So harness that creativity.
That don't be afraid to express it. Yeah.
Exactly.
When you think back to the influence that Music for All and Bands of America has had on your career and those people that you've met and those relationships that have really brought you to where you are today, what does that mean to you as a person?
I mean, it's humbling. It's all a bit humbling. I feel very fortunate to have been, born at that time in that place and to have access to those caliber of instructors and people and personalities and that kind of positive educational system. It's just, I just feel humbled, basically. Thankful.
Amen.
Yeah.
If you had to give some input and influence as to where the organization goes from here, and I know that's probably nothing you've given any thought to until I just asked this question, but what do you think the future looks like for Music for All?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because it seems like it's already gone leaps and bounds from when I was on the field and doing the summer, music symposium. I didn't realize that they had opened up to orchestra and maybe even choir. I'm not sure.
The thing now, the focus that the board has now that I really love is the all portion, the music for all.
Exactly. And that is crucial.
That doesn't mean people to just show up in Indianapolis in November.
Right. No, we have to work together. And I also see, the one thing I would say is the music technology aspect, because that's for musicians, at least a really practical way. But I think that's already in place and that's already part of the program. So I would think that, just growing, spreading that message out to a wider audience to continue including everyone and showing the benefits that music education has and access to music has on people, whether they ever pursue it after 8th grade or 12th grade. It's going to make them a more complete person and a better person. I think those are just important lessons and making sure that research and message gets out there.
Agreed. What are you working on right now? What's next for you?
Well, I just played a solo show in Maine last weekend. I finished 4, 5, 6 months of touring with Wilco this year. So that was U.S. and South America and Europe and more U.S. and Canada. And I've got a couple shows at the end of the month in New York and Minneapolis with a writer friend of mine, Karlov Knausgaard, a Norwegian writer. I love doing weird, I work with dance companies. I've worked with chefs and engineers and, all sorts of different disparate types of artists and people just to, try and grow and see, well, can this work or not? So I've got a couple shows with him and then I'm playing at PASIC.
Oh, really?
The 50th anniversary of the Percussive Arts Society National Convention in Indy.
Grand Nationals this year?
I haven't seen Grand Nationals in decades, and I would love to see one.
That's actually the last time I saw Jim Campbell. We were walking through the convention center, and I hear "Go Cats," and I scream "Go Cats," and he...
Oh, nice.
Just keep on walking.
Yeah. And then, just more some tour dates with the quartet of mine in December. And then every week for the last 300 consecutive weeks, I make an original beat and post it on Instagram and my website, either here or in Whitewater or on tour. Something that I think is compositionally fresh and relevant, something new I'm working on. So this week will be 301.
What is your Instagram link?
I think it's just my name, @Glenn Kotche. Yeah.
Right on. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to be part of the Beat Club after this.
Okay,
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see all that influence from all those people and, Lake Park and Roselle Middle and University of Kentucky and Cavaliers. And I still have, I don't know if you can see from where you guys are, but right over there, that's my Cavalier snare head from when I marched in '89.
From your age out year?
You know what? Unfortunately, I just marched the year after high school.
Oh, okay.
And then I had 3 more years left, but because my rock band at the time were all going to different colleges, they were like, summer's the only time we can play. And I understood that. And I was really focusing on drum sets. So I used my dues money and started taking lessons from Paul Wertico, Pat Metheny's drummer, from Bob Rummage, another UK alum who was Woody Herman's drummer, and Joel Spencer and stuff. But
I think you made a good decision there.
Well, I wish I could have done both somehow, but that's what I decided.
We all get that. When you're paying for it yourself, that's how it works.
One other piece I got to show you, if you
Yeah.
can see up there, that's the 1988 Frank Arsenal High Percussion Award from the Mideast Regional that our drumline won. And these are my sticks from that year.
I love that.
I still have those.
I love that your office, your space that you find comfort in includes all of that. It's not just the big boy stuff. It's the kid stuff too. And I love it.
Yeah, at some point, there were too many trophies at Lake Park, so they had to start getting rid of some of them. And so I was gifted that through my then section leader, Craig Belford, who's now a judge in DuPage County.
Yeah.
And that sits up there because I guess I'm a great grand student of Frank Arsenal because Jim Campbell, Mitch Markovich,
That makes sense.
Frank Arsenal, which also Larry McCormick was a
Yeah.
student of his at Cavaliers.
It all goes back to Larry McCormick, man.
Yep. And Scott was really supportive, when I was at those symposiums as well. And just a wonderful team they've always had there.
Well, Glenn Kotche, I have enjoyed this conversation more than I'm allowed to.
Oh, me as well.
Thank you so much for being part of this. I appreciate you taking time for us and being part of Bands of America history and being the advocate that you are for music and music education. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for including me. And congratulations. This is a big one. 50.
Can you believe it?
It's amazing. Yeah. What a wonderful 50 years that's been and so many lives impacted. So congratulations and most of all, thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, and don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller. I'm Chuck Henson. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on Joining Us. Joining us from Avon, Indiana.